All right, so let's set the scene here a little bit.
Okay.
You've had a crazy day at work, long commute home. You're finally ready to just relax,
Yeah.
and you open the door, and
Oh.
there's water everywhere.
Oh, no.
Your basement's flooded, maybe the kitchen. Who knows? It's bad.
Yeah, that's a nightmare.
Total nightmare. And in that moment,
You're not thinking straight.
not even a little bit, you just want someone, anyone, to come fix it and make this awful mess go away.
Right. You need someone you can trust.
Exactly. And it's not always easy to know who to call, right? Because when you're dealing with something like water damage or fire damage, you're not just dealing with the physical damage, you're also dealing with the emotional stress, the
Yeah.
feeling of being overwhelmed.
Absolutely. It's a very vulnerable position to be in
Totally. So today, we're doing a deep dive into something that's crucial in this industry, but often overlooked: restoration ethics.
because it's not just about getting the job done, it's about getting it done right.
100%. And to guide our deep dive, we're turning to an article from the Cleaning and Restoration Science Institute, or CORSI for short.
They're a great resource for this kind of thing.
The best. So one of the things that really jumps out from this article is the emphasis on transparency. And you might think, well, yeah, transparency is important in any business, right? But it's especially crucial in the restoration industry, and here's why.
Because, like we said, when you're dealing with a disaster in your home, you're often feeling stressed, vulnerable, maybe even a little bit scared. You need someone you can trust to be upfront and honest with you every step of the way.
It's like, this is not the time for fine print and hidden fees.
Exactly. You need clear communication about what needs to be done, how long it's going to take, and how much it's going to cost.
So let's say you're talking to a restoration company for the first time. What are some specific things that tell you they're being transparent? What should you be looking for?
Well, first and foremost, they should be willing to explain things in a way that you understand. Remember, you're not the expert here. They are. So if they're throwing around a bunch of jargon or being evasive when you ask questions, that's a red flag.
It's like going to the doctor.
Exactly. You want them to explain your diagnosis in plain English.
For 100%. And I imagine that detailed estimates are a big deal too.
It's huge. A transparent company will provide a clear, itemized breakdown of all costs involved, and they'll do it up front before any work begins. No surprises on the final bill, and if there are any changes, they'll communicate those to you clearly and get your approval.
Okay, so transparency check. But it's not just about being upfront about the technical stuff, right? There's also this whole other layer of like understanding what the homeowner is going through emotionally.
Yeah.
And that's where the idea of a client-centric approach comes in, which is something else that CARSI highlights in their article.
And it's so important because a flooded basement, a fire, any kind of disaster in your home, it's not just an inconvenience, it's an upheaval.
It can be really traumatic.
Exactly. And a truly ethical restoration company, they get that. They understand that they're not just restoring property, they're restoring peace of mind. They're treating you with empathy and compassion because they recognize that you're going through a tough time.
So they're not just ripping out soggy drywall, they're thinking about you and what you're going through.
Exactly.
They're listening to you, they're answering your questions patiently.
Right, and maybe even offering some practical advice like, hey, here's what you need to know about dealing with your insurance company.
Which can feel like a whole other disaster sometimes.
Oh, tell me about it. It's like adding insult to injury, right?
But that's exactly why this client-centric approach is so crucial. It's about going that extra mile to make a stressful situation a little bit easier for the homeowner. Okay, so we've got transparency, we've got empathy, but there's another big piece to this ethical puzzle, and that's professional integrity. The Carlisle article talks a lot about this, the importance of things like a strong code of conduct, regular training for employees. But how do you actually make sure that's happening? I mean, it's one thing to have it written down on paper, but how do you ensure these companies are really putting those ethics into practice?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
Because anyone can talk the talk, but it's walking the walk that really matters. One thing I always look for is a company that has a system in place for dealing with ethical dilemmas.
Ethical dilemmas meaning?
Meaning those tricky situations where there's not always a clear right or wrong answer. Like maybe a client is asking them to do something that feels a little shady, or there's pressure to cut corners to save money.
Oh, so it's like having a plan for when things get tough so employees aren't just left to figure it out on their own.
Precisely. And a good plan will include things like clear guidelines for ethical decision-making, a designated person or team who can provide guidance when needed, even a whistleblower policy so employees can speak up if they see something that's not right.
It's like having that ethical safety net, right? So everyone knows what's expected of them, and there's a process in place for handling those tough calls.
And it goes beyond just having a plan. It's about creating a company culture where ethical behavior is valued, where it's celebrated even.
So it's not just about avoiding bad behavior, it's about actively promoting good behavior.
100%. It's about recognizing and rewarding employees who consistently do the right thing, even when it's hard. And that sends a powerful message to everyone in the organization.
Okay, so we've talked about transparency, a client-centric approach, professional integrity, all of which, by the way, are things you should absolutely be looking for when you're vetting restoration companies. But let's talk about everyone's least favorite topic for a minute, money. Because let's be real, one of the biggest fears people have when dealing with any type of home repair or disaster is getting ripped off.
Oh, absolutely, and it's a valid concern. Especially in a situation where you might be feeling overwhelmed and vulnerable, it's easy to feel taken advantage of.
Which is why it's so reassuring that this CarC article really emphasizes ethical billing
It's
practices.
something they take very seriously, and for good reason. It really all boils down to that transparency idea again.
Okay, so let's say, I mean, knock on wood, this never happens, but let's say I do find myself facing some kind of disaster at home.
Hopefully not. But if you do,
Yeah, right. If I do, what are some red flags to watch out for when I'm talking to a restoration company about the costs? Like, what should set off alarm bells in my head and make me think, maybe not these guys?
well, for starters, if a company seems evasive about their pricing or hesitant to put things in writing, that's definitely a red flag.
So, like, if they're giving me a verbal quote but not wanting to write it down.
Exactly. A reputable company will be happy to provide a detailed written estimate up front. And along those same lines, if their pricing seems vague or if they're using a lot of technical jargon that you don't understand, don't be afraid to ask for clarification.
It's my home. I have the right to understand what I'm paying for.
Absolutely. And you should also be wary of any company that tries to pressure you into signing a contract before you've had a chance to read it thoroughly and make sure you're comfortable with all the terms.
Oh, so important. Don't let anyone rush you into anything.
Exactly. A good company, an ethical company, will be patient and give you the time you need to make an informed decision.
So it's like we were saying before, it's about treating clients with respect and empathy, not just seeing them as a dollar sign.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that this is a difficult situation for the homeowner and they're looking for a partner, someone they can trust to guide them through the process.
Someone who's going to have their back, not take advantage of them.
100%. And I think that's a good note to end on, actually.
Yeah, it really drives home the point that ethical restoration, it's about so much more than just fixing what's broken. It's about integrity, it's about empathy, it's about doing the right thing, even when no one's watching.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
It's about restoring peace of mind along with those water-damaged carpets.
Love it. Restoring peace of mind. Well, there you have it, folks. A deep dive into the world of restoration ethics with help from our friends at CarC.
Thanks for having me. Always happy to geek out about ethics.
Anytime. And listeners, until next time, remember, when it comes to choosing a restoration company, or any service provider for that matter, don't just focus on the bottom line. Look for those who prioritize ethics and integrity. Trust us, it makes all the difference. And on that note, we'll catch you in the next episode.